Good afternoon. My name is Lisa Lee. I'm the Director of Sustainability Programs at EasyRide. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, sorry. Oh, shoot. My slides are not advancing. Hold on, everybody. What's going on here? Oh, there we go. We, we have a great agenda and a wonderful guest speaker joining George and I from NJDEP today. Gabrielle Bate will speak about EV incentives, the electric school bus program, EVs as a grid asset, and much more. So George Koutsaradis from Charge EVC and Brian Electric is joining me here as my co-host. And, we're excited to talk about how an investment in sustainability and workplace charging can help to improve community health, reduce your operating costs, increase your property value, attract talent who are environmental supporters, and position your organization as a sustainability leader. As I said, again, I'm Lisa Lee. I work for EasyRide. We're a transportation management association in New Jersey. There are 8 TMAs. We provide different programs to promote mobility, and we serve Bergen County, Monmouth County, and the urban areas of Essex, Passaic, and Union counties. 2 of our programs, the Easy Ride for Life transportation program for those who cannot drive, and our EV Accelerator program, are statewide. So as an organization, we believe that a safer, greener, and more affordable transportation system is vital to maintaining New Jerseyans' quality of life and economic growth. As well, the safety of pedestrians, cyclists, and other vulnerable people, transportation emissions, and their adverse effect on people's health and the environment are a huge concern. For 40 years, we've been partnering with businesses and local government to implement transportation programs and services like carpools, van pools, shuttles as last mile transit to transit stations, biking and walking initiatives for the community. All of these are aimed at reducing congestion and mitigating air pollution. In response to growing concerns about safety and the impacts of climate change, EasyRide has rolled out initiatives such as speed studies, complete streets demonstration projects, air quality monitoring, technical assistance for EV charging, and the promotion of walking, biking, and EVs. So transportation, as many of you probably know already, is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the United States today. And unfortunately, the local air pollution from transportation has a direct impact on human health. This could be anything from cognitive impacts, average lifespan reduction, fatalities for those who have chronic pulmonary types of diseases. And unfortunately, children and those who live in communities closest to where our transportation systems are located are oftentimes most impacted. Let's see if you can hide this. So driving electric vehicles is definitely part of the solution. They are emissions free in terms of when they are operating. There are many lower cost EVs that are now available in the market, as well as used EVs. They don't require gasoline, which, as we know, recently the prices have just been, too high for most of us. And they also require less maintenance. They include everything from electric school buses, police cars, parking enforcement vehicles, garbage trucks, and also e-micromobility, such as e-bikes and e-scooters. So let me see. Okay. There are many barriers, unfortunately, to EV adoption for some, right? This could be something like fear of new technology, no more federal tax rebates, no access to home charging, and and we definitely are still looking at increasing the availability of EV chargers for those who cannot access them at home because maybe they live in a multi-unit dwelling or apartment. However, by installing public EV charging or workplace charging, whether that's at your school, in your municipal or county offices or locations, this can all help to increase accessibility to EV charging for your employees as well as residents. 78% of American commuters drive to work still. And so wherever they're parking their vehicles for that 8 hours a day or more, there's an opportunity that they could do EV charging. So with that, I want to introduce our guest speaker. Take it away, Gabby.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Hello, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Byatt, and I'm an environmental specialist with the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, the Bureau of Mobile Sources. That's a mouthful. I have been with the department since 2019 and with the same bureau since 2019, so my entire career so far. I'm also one of the supervisors of the Diesel Modernization Grant Program, one of our many popular grant programs that I'll dive into today. I'm just so excited to chat with you all about the exciting opportunities to electrify your fleet. Next slide, please. All right, so I'd like to take a quick moment to introduce our Bureau, the Bureau of Mobile Sources. Our mission is to reduce pollution from New Jersey's largest source of greenhouse gas emissions, as Lisa mentioned earlier, transportation. So we do this through several key programs. Our vehicle inspection program in collaboration with the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. It's called Inspection and Maintenance, or IM program. So that ensures vehicles meet emission standards. You know, when you go through oh my goodness, it's leaving me. When you go through vehicle inspection, the inspection lanes, right? Then we have our grant programs, which we help fund upgrades to cleaner diesel, electric vehicles, and EV charging stations. We have educational initiatives, programs like our Wait Clean Anti-Idling Initiative and Drive Green NJ to help spread awareness and reduce our emissions that way as well, too. Next slide, please. All right. So now is a great time to take advantage of financial incentives from various New Jersey state agencies if you're transitioning to electric vehicles. Just an important note about combining a lot of these incentives. You generally cannot stack multiple state incentives together. However, you can combine certain state incentives with utility make-ready programs. So I'll dive into it a little bit more on the next slide, but really quick, make ready, especially make ready programs help cover the infrastructure costs of installing EV charging stations, like electrical upgrades and whatnot. George may cover some of this in his presentation as well, but I'll give you a quick little overview on the next slide. But I know there's a lot of links on this one, so if you do want to see this slide, after the presentation, just feel free to shoot me an email and I can give this to you. And then next slide, please. So like I mentioned earlier, that make-ready infrastructure, I really like this graphic courtesy of myself and my colleague Colleen. We made this a few years ago. So Make Ready covers the infrastructure work needed to prepare your site for EV chargers. Basically, everything happens before you put the charger in itself. So this can include the electrical panel, the transformer upgrades, trenching, extending service, And like I said, George could probably speak more to this later. But this is important because these costs can be significant, sometimes exceeding the cost of the chargers themselves. That's why many utility companies, PSE&G, Atlantic City Electric, JCP&L, just to name a few, can offer make-ready programs, grant programs to cover those expenses to get your site ready for, when you upgrade to electric buses, electric garbage trucks, and you need to have those chargers in there. So it kind of preps everything. Um, so that's why it's nice to kind of combine them as well too. Next slide, please.
Gabby, there's also a question that came up as to what can be stacked.
Sure. So can BPU and NJDEP funds be stacked? So it really depends. You cannot combine something that's similar. So say BPU is giving you money for chargers, and the DEP is also giving you money for chargers. You cannot combine both of those. But if the BPU program is giving you chargers and we're not, then you can combine that. So it really depends on what project you're doing. My advice when you're thinking about stacking is always reach out to your grant officer, communicate with us, and we will work with you and your specific project and scenario. Because it can kind of change, year to year. Sometimes you can stack, sometimes you can't. So definitely my biggest advice is just reach out to your grant officer, or just reach out to us in general, even if you're just thinking about starting a project, and let us know your expectations. I hope that answered it, kind of. All right, I'm going to keep going. All right, so taking that step towards electrification can feel overwhelming and just full of confusing information. It's like you don't know what you don't know. So the New Jersey Fleet Advisor Program offers free of cost vehicle recommendations, cost projections, on-site electrical infrastructure assessments, financial information, zero emission basics, all to private, public, and nonprofit fleets that operate within New Jersey. So this program, I think, is really helpful because it can offer you that one-on-one support when you're really excited and you're ready to hit the ground running with an electrification project. They kind of get all your ducks in a row almost. And we will offer this with what I'm going to talk to you about next. Next slide, please. All right, the moment everybody's been waiting for. I'm going to start talking about money and grant programs. I know George is excited. This is where everybody really locks in everything, where the money starts getting discussed. But before I dive into all the Bureau's wonderful grant programs, I want to particularly highlight the third, my lucky number, and final round of the electric school bus grant program. So Governor Murphy, former Governor Murphy, wow, signed the electric school bus law in 2022. I can't believe that's been 4 years ago. This law dedicates $45 million to electric school buses over a 3-year period. So we are on that 3 years to determine the operational reliability and cost effectiveness of electric school buses. So the ESB grant program supports school districts that own their own buses or school bus contractors providing buses to schools. Eligible buses are all electric, type C or D, which are the bigger 36 plus passenger size buses. So this presentation came at a great time because we're only a few weeks away from opening up the third round. So please, please, please scan that QR code, take your phone out, sign up for our mailing list, follow our social media pages. That'll be at the end of our presentation. Or I know my awesome colleagues are in this presentation right now. They can always drop the link to our Instagram, our Facebook, our websites, but definitely sign up and follow us so you could stay in the know when the third round drops. Next slide, please. Okay. So I think it's really important to recognize the benefits EVs provide in terms of grid power. We understand that charging a battery will draw power from the grid, but let's not forget that these are still batteries, and now batteries on wheels. This means they can operate like a mobile generator, or if they're big enough, a mobile power plant. For example, vehicle to grid or V2G can provide a school with power during a power outage by utilizing the charge of its electric school bus fleet. How cool is that? While this technology is still in its pilot phase, it has been showing a promising future to reduce the utility costs over time. This is particularly because the batteries decrease the capacity needs of the grid since they can be utilized as storage or, like I said, a source of energy themselves. Next slide, please. So the Bureau has a slew of wonderful grant programs that are driving the move towards cleaner air. I will go into a quick overview of each of these programs on the next few slides. All right. So the Diesel Modernization Program, aka Work Clean, is primarily a diesel replacement program. This program utilizes federal and state funding to replace on-road and non-road diesel equipment or vehicles and repower marine engines. Anything from refuse trucks, which are garbage trucks, I learned that pretty recently, to forklifts to ferry vessels. This program periodically solicits specific project proposals in addition to accepting project proposals on a rolling basis, with awards contingent upon available funding. So same thing here, scan that QR code. I always encourage people, if you are thinking about a project that may fit within these parameters, send us a proposal. We have a really great Get Started page that kind of outlines everything. So definitely visit that QR code and visit our site to learn more about the DMP program. Next slide, please. All right, so it pays to plug in one of our, I would say, most well-known grant programs with the department. Provides grants to offset the cost of purchasing and maintaining electric vehicle charging stations. This program is designed to expand New Jersey's growing network of electric vehicle infrastructure, allowing residents, businesses, and government agencies to purchase and drive electric vehicles. EVs dramatically reduce emissions and improve air quality for everyone. Next slide, please. Our e-mobility program, shout out to my girl Colleen, my colleague Colleen, she may be on this. The e-mobility grant program launched in 2020, advancing equitable transportation statewide by providing funds for shared mobility services. These efforts decrease emissions and expand access to transportation for residents who may not own a vehicle, which I think is very important. In 2024, the program was elevated through the e-mobility planning toolkit, a step-by-step guide to encourage meaningful engagement as a key component of projects, positioning the program as a leader in community-driven transportation equity. A really great program, e-mobility, Uber, Lyft, taxis. If you're in the Trenton area, you may see the Go Trenton vehicles driving around. Yeah, really cool stuff. Shout out to Colleen. Next slide, please. All right. So this slide here just clarifies some important program requirements for a reimbursement grant program. Unlike voucher programs, recipients must pay expenses first and get reimbursed later, though up to 75% can be advanced after signing or executing the grant agreement. Certain funding sources do require decommissioning and do require proper documentation of the decommissioning. But always, 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 like I mentioned earlier, ask us, reach out. We're here to help you. We work for you. We're here to make this work for you. So definitely reach out to your grant officers, reach out to us, send us an email. If you have a question about a project, we're here to help you. So I just want to reiterate that, don't ghost us. We won't be offended if you don't want to move through with things or if you want to change things around. Nothing's going to be held against you. Just very important. Keep in contact with us. We'll be glad to work with you. I see a couple questions popped up.
Colleen, here's a question. Can the school districts request money up front? I believe this question is, based on the fact that you just mentioned it's a reimbursement grant. So you might want to just.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So you can request an advance payment, but you still need to go through the entire process with us and get a grant agreement executed with us. So that involves getting your applicant information in, getting your project information in, getting quotes on vehicles, sending everything in and going through that signature process. And then once it's approved by everyone, all parties, then you can go ahead and make purchases and then you can go ahead and get reimbursed. Like I said, up to 75%. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. My contact information is located on this slide. Please feel free to shoot me an email with any questions you have, or if you want these slides. And please, please, please take out your phone, scan that QR code. Please give our social media channels a follow and support us. Sign up for our mailing list. ESB round 3 is coming up. And thank you so much. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Gabby.
No
And
problem.
we will share the slides and the video with everyone. Hold on, let me move this. Spotlight George.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is George Koutsaradis. I'm a member of Charge EVC as well as the EV sales manager for Bryan Electric. And today I'm going to talk about some site strategies, things to consider, things to anticipate, and then help answer any of the technical boots on the ground questions that you guys may have about, making the concept a reality. Next slide, please. So just to keep it basic for a moment, obviously most of us are already aware, but there's three different types of electric vehicles. There's hybrid, there's plug-in hybrids, and there's full electric zero emission BEVs. And all of them can obviously help extend range. But it's important to note that only plug-in hybrid and full EVs can actually go on EV charging stations. Speaking of EV charging stations, just like the vehicles, there's three different types of them. We refer to them as level 1, level 2, and level 3. The big difference between them is how quickly they can charge because it's how much voltage they can output. So level 1 is your typical wall outlet, your 110 volt. It's really for a plug-in hybrid, it's good for overnight charging. For a full electric vehicle, it's really only if you're in an emergency pinch. Level 2 charging is your strong charger for a plug-in hybrid, and it is your daily charger for a zero emission. And then level 3 is your DC fast chargers, your superchargers for full electric vehicles. Next slide, please. So I want to kind of touch back on some of the things that Gabby brought up in terms of incentives. So the state has done a fantastic job of creating this funding one-stop shop site. So we'll have the link in the chat, but it is a huge way to find all the funding that you're available. Not just the DEP and the BPU, but also the utility incentives that are out there, other state agencies that are out there. Technically, whatever is left of federal incentives is still shown on there. And the great part too is it'll show programs that while they may be past their terms, at least they'll show them, and then there's the potential of them coming back out in future funding rounds. So I highly recommend everybody go through it. Yeah, it asks you a few quick questions, and then you get lined up with exactly the type of funding that's available for your project. Next slide, please. So talking about the EV charging project development life cycle. So to keep it very simple, starts off with your discovery call, right? Where do you want them? What are you looking to do? What's the intent of your chargers? Is it for fleet? Is it for public use? Is it a mix? Talking there first, even if you don't know, at least asking the questions with a professional can help zero in on what exactly your project needs to look like. So if it is a workplace, but you want to be able to open it up to the public after hours, or you're right next to a highway. So let's talk about DC fast chargers as a potential option. That all gets hashed out in the discovery interview. Next, you schedule the site survey. If you're using existing infrastructure, you will most of the time require a load study. And it is very, very important that during that load study and during the site assessment, if you're going to use existing infrastructure, it's critical that you get the past 12 months of utility bills ahead of time because they will be required in order to confirm if you have available capacity for your site. If you are doing a new service off of the utility poles, then, it's a little bit different, but still load study is critical for it. After all of that, you'll get your turnkey proposal that'll include your chargers, your make ready costs, um, any other kind of pertinent pieces, permitting, engineer design. If you're using a few available state contracts that are out there, a lot of times they have a lot of those services roped in together, which is helpful. But it's important that once you get that proposal, remember, as Gabby said, until you get an executed agreement with the state for DEP, BPU, or any of the state incentives, do not award your project to your contractor until you have that. If you do end up executing a purchase order, which is the next step, the project award, and you don't have that in place, you will void yourself of the state funding available to you. So just double check and make sure that all your ducks are in a row before you go through for that next phase. But once you do have your agreement and once you do have your contract and everything's ready to go, that's when verifying and permitting begins. So connecting with the utility, even if it's existing infrastructure, it's critical that you contact your local utility, make sure they're aware as well, so that way they know if you're adding this kind of load to the grid in that particular area. They're aware of it and they're making sure that their infrastructure locally can handle it. Then we get to the actual installation, which it is crazy because a lot of times people think that's the long part. And in reality, most boots on the ground actual installation, once you have material and permits done, is only about 1 to 3 weeks, depending on the size of the project. Some larger ones may take a little bit more time, but on average, about 1 to 3 weeks worth of installation. Then once that's complete, you're going to activate, you're going to get your rebates, you're going to submit for all of your reimbursements, and then you're going to activate and commission your stations. Next slide, please. So I want to talk about a little bit for some considerations for each of your sites. So the first consideration is ADA guidelines. So to make a long story short, it's not a full requirement in all cases, but in certain larger developments, you will be required to have at least one ADA accessible charging stall. So next slide, please. It's important that, keeping in mind, just because you put a walkway and some striping there doesn't mean it's necessarily correctly installed for ADA consideration. So unfortunately, we've seen some bad actors out there that will just kind of do what they have to check a box. But be mindful in your consideration. So the beauty of it is, if we're using an existing parking lot, by just removing one stall, we can create two van accessible stalls that will be actually ADA accessible for those in need. So, making sure the walkway lines up with your charger, making sure the bollards are spaced out well enough so that way a wheelchair could access through it, and making sure there are no other obstructions, including a curb line. Or a high-pitched ramp, making sure that there's no obstruction whatsoever to get to the station itself is critical. That could be easily avoided with a little bit of development design. Next slide, please. So speaking of protective bollards, they are also important. You don't want to have this whole project built and designed, and then unfortunately you have somebody skip a curb and all that infrastructure goes away. So protect it with bollards. I will even go as far as saying, don't cheap out on doing just the bolt-on bollards. Do actual cast-ins, because they will protect especially with heavier EVs out there. It'll protect it a lot better than a bolt down. But also for in parking garages or wall mounted enclosed stations, wall guards can also work. We have specific ones designed now out there that can withstand the same impact rating as a bollard by using the wall behind it. So that's also a good way to avoid over developing inside enclosures. And then speaking of anything that's inside a parking garage, next slide, please. So while it is not law right now, they are currently in development of putting in the code, putting in regulations about fire prevention for indoor chargers. So right now, the thing I will recommend to everyone is some small little design improvements can make your project go a long way. That includes getting the lithium battery fire extinguishers. They're really not that expensive. They're about 300 a pop for the big guys. Putting in shunt trip breakers to connect with a heat detector that's located above the charger. So if there is any kind of extreme fire, at least we're cutting power and reducing anything from continuing with it. These small little investments can save you thousands in actual infrastructure issues. Next slide, please. And then the last design consideration for those that it can be impacted by is flood and design flood elevation. So the chargers themselves are deemed by code to be a expendable infrastructure and therefore similar to a gas station pump, right? The unit itself can be underneath design flood elevation. However, all the distribution equipment, your panel, your switchboards, your CT cabinets, those do need to be elevated. So make sure you're double checking, or at least have your contractor double check if you're in a flood zone. What is the design flood elevation? Make sure all of the important infrastructure is meeting that code, especially as we're seeing with climate change. You know, flood is getting only worse and worse every year. So you don't want to have all this infrastructure. You could see some examples. It can be something as small as lifting it a couple inches to really extreme circumstances where we may have to build a whole structure and put it on the second story, if you will. Next slide, please. So, like I mentioned, FEMA flood mapping, it's critical to look at that map prior to your design conversation. Also, if you don't already know who your local utility is, look at the utility territory map, understand who your electric provider is. And then another map that's also important, especially for all the incentives that we've mentioned previously, the EJ map for overburdened communities. This will, if you are in one of these zones, this will allow you to take, usually it's about a 50% increase in the available funds for any of the grants that participate with it. So as simple as just looking up your address, seeing if it's in a qualified zone, it could give you extra incentive money from these grants and rebates that are available to you. And with that, I will pass it off to Lisa to wrap us up, and then we'll answer questions.
Okay, thank you so much again, George. Let me see. So we're going to talk a little bit about EV adoption leadership certification. This is a EVAL, the short acronym. It's a national recognition program. It was originally started by the U.S. Department of Energy, and it is a national program. So, we try to have all three of us, NJDEP, Bryan Electric, Easy Ride, we're all EV adoption leader certified. This certification, just kind of displays our commitment and support for electric vehicles and cleaner transportation. It's a certification that's actually aligned with the LEED certification for buildings. It fosters ideas that promote sustainability And it provides a network of other EV adoption leaders, champions, to get ideas from, to network with. One of the things I really love about the certification, and communities or school districts or businesses that have done that have found that it provides actually additional ideas on how you can be a sustainability leader as you go through the certification. So I think in that respect, it's a fantastic program. Um, uh, all of the TMAs in New Jersey can help to provide activities that will help you qualify and get points for the certification, whether that's educational programs, Drive Electric Earth Month activities, um, alternative commuting education, like for transit or for biking, those kinds of things. The TMAs are, just that's what our bread and butter. Easy Ride, we're the state TMA that administers this program in New Jersey. So we have resources that can help you get certified, that will help you know exactly what points, what kinds of activities you need to do to help you get to the tier that you want to be. So there are 4 levels, bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And as you can see, you only really need 15 points to become bronze. We have communities that have gotten silver certified, and they still haven't yet put in their EV chargers. Typically, you need the chargers to be gold or platinum. But the certification is for all types of employers of all sizes, all industries. You could be state, county, municipal. You could be a school district or a individual school or a tribal entity. The only organizations that cannot be certified are those that only have fleet vehicles, like fleet electric vehicles. So the program aims to really encourage employees to transition to EVs, as well as, residents in your community. So one of the other great things about this is that it has really excellent resources. I'll copy them and put them into the chat when I'm done. But there's project builder portals from Charge at Work, which is a CalSTART program. So, I think CalSTART is the consultant for DEP for their Fleet Advisor program, but they are also affiliated with EVAL. So they have a pledge. I encourage everyone to, scan this, make your pledge. It gives you 1 point to be for certification, but they've also got this fantastic resource center and a project builder portal with lots of helpful advice. Ooh, did I skip one? I guess not. So these are our certified New Jersey sustainability leaders. West Orange Township just recently got certified, so I think I still need to add them here to this page. But we really want to encourage those who are out there listening to do this. There is a small fee for it, but you get 20% off the certification if you're here today with us. If you've attended a Wheels and Watts webinar, you're going to get 25% off if you are some form of local government or a nonprofit. And if you are a woman or a minority-owned business, it will be free for you, the certification. So I think, the one other thing I want to say, we're going to go into our Q&A next, but is that Sustainable Jersey has also partnered with us, so that those of you who are part of that program, schools and municipalities, you will be able to get from 15 to 20 Sustainable Jersey points if you also get eval certified. So, and we all know that, in other words, that's providing some additional grant opportunities for schools and municipalities. By getting the certification, you can then turn that over into funding that you can use for your programs. So I'm going to now stop. I guess George and I are still spotlighted. I'll just add Gabby to the spotlight. And put the things in, and then it's Q&A time. So if you'd like, you can go ahead and raise your hands or just unmute. I did see an additional question. I'm going to go back and try to find that. But does anyone have a question? Oh, here was a question, Gabby. This was from Fahim from East Orange School District. If they applied for round 2, can they also apply for round 3 of the electric school bus program?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. Fahim, you heard that, right?
As long as it's a new project.
A new project. Okay.
Yep.
So like, what would that mean? You mean like if they applied in
So if
chargers, now they can get the buses, or if they got the buses, now they can get like, I don't know, a refuse truck or something for the district. I don't.
No, so it would mean, so say East Orange applied for round 2 and they got 2 electric school buses. A lot of people start smaller, I think, with the adoption. So if they want to get an additional 2 electric school buses for another project, in addition to, then they could apply again and, build on top of what they already have.
Okay, that makes
They
sense.
just can't use that funding to like supplement a project that's already started. They would have to submit for another project. But we've had people come back, years from now, same applicant, but they come back years from now and they're like, oh, we loved our, electric school buses, or we loved our, electric garbage trucks. And they've come back to our program and they're like, oh, we're going to do it, we're going to add 2 more to the fleet. Let's, put in a proposal for 2 more. So you can definitely do that.
I think the other thing that you could do if you're here from a school district, I know we've got a couple of others. Hi, Barry. If you, let's say you don't own your own school bus fleet, but you have a vendor. So you could also encourage your school bus vendor to apply for this grant funding, because it's going to benefit your students when, these quieter, no emission school buses are, driving through your community. It's a win, right? It's a win-win. They're quieter, no gas required, less maintenance, and less pollution for everyone to breathe. So
Right. I always think about the kids when they're, walking to find their bus at the end of the school day and all the buses are idling and they're just walking past all the diesel fumes, especially the little ones, they're like right there. So I always think about them and how electrifying your school buses, they'd all be sitting there with their air conditioning on, but there'd be no diesel, fumes pumping out and them breathing it in. And it'd just be much quieter.
yeah.
Also, speaking on that note, Gabby, correct me if I'm wrong. If it's a entity that is supporting a school district that's in an OBC, they would still qualify even if the fleet destination is not part of a territory, correct?
As long as they serve an OBC. So like a lot of the, school bus contractor companies, yeah, like their location can be somewhere else, but as long as they show what school they're serving and that school district or region is in an OBC, correct, they would get that additional incentive. And of course, everything for round 3 too, just to throw this out there, will be posted on all of our platforms. Everything is still being finalized, so I can't speak directly on round 3 just yet, but that's why I reiterate the importance of following all of our channels, signing up for our mailing list. There will be documentation on what you can stack with our programs in the document for ESB round 3. So, just hang tight. I know everybody always wants the most bang for their buck, but hang tight and sign up for all of our, mailing lists and social media, so you can stay in the know about all these incentives.
Awesome. there any other questions?
I think the other thing, I want to congratulate Belleville School District. They put in EV charging at 10, all 10 of their school sites. And they just finished their installations maybe like a few months ago, and they just finally adopted their policy. So for those of you who are here that are, district administrators, you may not necessarily be involved with all the tech part of it, but it's never too late to start thinking about, your policies. So we talked about that at our last one. I didn't think we would have enough time, so I cut it out. But you can always reach out to us too for, George is definitely our technical expert. But in terms of planning, you can also reach out to me to think about, what are the things you need to be thinking about in advance so that you can really get going. Um, because we all know it can take several months for it to pass your Board of Eds, your resolutions. So, rather than having the charger sitting there for 3 months while you're still thinking about your policy, the charging policy, start thinking about that, while you're still in the process. So then as soon as they're installed, you can cut the ribbon and go.
Got a
Oh, wait,
hand
Richard
raised.
Wyatt. Yeah, Richard Wyatt. Go ahead and unmute. You can ask your question. I'm not hearing anything, but if you're having issues, you can always type your question into the chat too, sir.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. First, I would like to thank you for this presentation. It was very informative. I'm with the East Orange School District as well.
Oh.
So two quick questions here. The first one, how long does it usually take to receive the grant agreement after you have submitted all the documentation?
So Richard, I'm assuming this one's for the DEP team.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so great question. A lot of factors can play into that. So we have very popular programs with quite a lot of applicants coming in, especially for the rolling admissions. I can't give an exact timeline, but in my experience, it's been roughly, I would say like 2 to 3 months-ish. Um, I think what's important to note is that it goes through several review processes. And I always suggest to the grantees, if they're interested in looking at like a sample grant agreement, like what the grant agreement would look like and stipulations behind it, we can always send a sample, so you can get an idea of what, you're waiting on. But it takes quite some time. I would say my ballpark is 2 to 3 months, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how popular things are at that moment.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that information. And just one more question. So we are interested in procuring the Type D buses, the monocoque style. However, we realize that the state has not approved them. So I know that they did submit that to legal. Does anybody know, does anybody know anything about that and that process?
Are you talking about like on state contract?
Yes, so the Type D that they're saying is not approved currently, but they're working on it.
Mhm. So I can't talk too much on it as much, but I do know that program is still in process. And then I do know that there are some available on Sourcewell contracting.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to look at Sourcewell co-op contracting, and I believe ESCNJ as well also has school buses on there.
Mhm.
So not necessarily state contract, but state procurement co-ops, that can certainly still help, you know, alleviate some of the burden.
Nice. Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
And I just put that in the chat for you, Richard. It was earlier on too, but you see this ESC the Educational Service Commission of New Jersey, and then below that Sourcewell. These are both purchasing co-ops in New Jersey that if you are a member, and I believe both of these are free to join,
Mhm.
then you'll get the state negotiated best price. Okay. I see another question from Orange Public School District. In regards to implementation of the grant, what is the timeline for completion of the grant project?
So kind of the same answer that I gave Richard. A lot comes into play with a grant project. It depends on how long things take to get delivered, when you order things, the type of communication you have with your grant officer, how long it takes for things to be approved. Like Lisa said, sometimes for school districts, it takes some time to get things approved by the board. So that could slow down the approval of your grant project. So it's kind of hard to give a straightforward answer. I know this isn't exactly what everybody would want, but it is kind of difficult to give a straightforward answer for how long a grant project takes because it's kind of codependent on each other and how fast all these pieces kind of move. And like I said, it goes through an extensive review in our department. It goes through a legal review. It goes through, I'll review a lot of these grants before sending it across the street for the legal review. And then, of course, when it comes to getting payment, that also needs to go through review. I know sometimes, too, I also have heard it can be a challenge to get different quotes. We do require 3 different quotes unless you're going through like a Sourcewell contract. So a lot of things come into play. I can't really give a super straightforward answer for each individual project until we start working on things and set a pace.
I'm going to put something in here too, because, like Easy Ride, we've worked with many communities, and they may not have the assets right up front to, to buy these things. So I've just put a link in here for what's called the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank. And I know, like, I've had communities that were working on street infrastructure, and they have very low cost, maybe sometimes zero interest loans, and communities could go there, get the funding to purchase, and then you get the reimbursement after everything is finished. So I just wanted to mention that because this could really help communities that don't necessarily have that funding right up front to purchase all the stuff and then wait for the reimbursement. I believe also you can check sometimes, Gabby, can you guys do phases? I mean, our own company asked you guys that same project, but I think you can do like progress payments they were talking about. But I know at least with street infrastructure, many times the road projects are done in phases. So like, let's say you borrow 300 grand, then you purchase what you need. Maybe that's some sidewalks or whatever. And then they finish that, they get the reimbursement of 300. Then they use that 300 to purchase the next phase of the project, because who wants to go into debt, like $2 million? I mean, I don't think buses are as expensive as street infrastructure can be. Like, a traffic signal, easily one intersection is $1 million. So,
Wow.
but yeah. So I just think people need to know these things are out there. So this is from like from a planning perspective, there are other things that can help you.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And we offer the progress payments. One of my projects right now is doing progress payments, where they'll submit their invoices and then I'll send it through review and then they'll get a progress payment towards everything. The only thing is we do withhold that last 10%, if the funding requirement wants you to decommission. So if you're decommissioning, I need to receive all that decommissioning documentation in order to give you that full grant amount. So we'll hold you to that until we get that information if the funding requires it. Because we pull from a variety of funding pots that all have specific requirements. That's why I always tell, the grantees or the applicants, if you want to see a sample grant agreement or if you want to talk this through and what's expected of you for this particular project, that's always a good choice as well too. And same with the advance payments. You can always request an advance payment. But like I said, it is kind of backlogged right now. So it is taking quite some time. And like George reiterated beautifully for me, like you gotta hold off on things until everything is signed, sealed, and delivered, and we give you that okay to move forward. And that's when, the money will be sent to you. This is a reimbursement program, not the voucher program.
Can I ask a question for others too? So let's say that they're ultimately they want to have like, 20 EV chargers, spread through different locations, whether it's the municipality or a district.
Mhm.
Would it be wiser to maybe like, because you have this thing, maybe you only apply for 8 or 9, the
Mhm.
funding for 8 or 9 chargers, put those in
Mhm.
first, and
Yep.
then come back on a later round
Yep. Yep.
because you have to make only, my understanding is there's only one reimbursement payment, right? Although I get confused with this progress payment thing, so that's why I'm asking for everybody else too. So
Right.
like you can only get reimbursed, let's say for the 8. So if I apply for 20, but I only want to put in 8 now because I want to kind of like, try it out. And also I'm worried that maybe the
Yeah.
technology will become better, in 2 years. So why would I purchase them all now? I mean, maybe you
Right.
and George can help us because I'm pretty sure that I'm not the only one. We don't think about these questions when we're in these webinars, but
Hmm.
No, totally. And for us, unfortunately, if you wanted to do 20, you would have to apply for the 20 with us just straight up, right then and there. A lot of our funding is only available for so many years, so we don't want to hold it. And then, somebody else is also ready to put in 10 chargers, but, that money is being held to maybe be used. So, like I said, I always like for people to kind of start small, um, see how you do with 2 electric school buses, and then, just stick it out, see how you like it. If you like it, come back and apply again and, add 2 more to it. But unfortunately, if, somebody wants to do like a really large scale project, they either have to be all in or, come back later and enter the queue again and go through the same process again for, another phase, as you would say.
hmm.
Yeah, and what I'll say from an infrastructure standpoint, right? So we a lot of times talk about future proofing, right? So, um, it can definitely be a huge cost savings to future proof to some caliper. So we've seen all different phases where it's like, let's just build the service larger to accommodate, the first 2 stations now, but have room for the next 5, 6, 10 in the future. So that way you don't have to upgrade with the utility over and over and over again.
Hmm.
You build the oversized service from now, so that way you're ready to go later. Um, and then we've seen some where they do all of the make ready, right? Have the conduit ran, have the wires pulled into a box, so that way it's ready at that point. It's just a matter of, keeping in mind how much you want to invest right up front, right? So it's definitely there are ways to do it to be cost conscious and cost, effective. But the worst thing you could do is build a whole service set for exactly what you need right now, and then come to find out, especially if it's your pilot, and then find out 5 years from now it's a great success and you need more and you got to redo everything over again. Um, we saw those early on where it was just very unfortunate that it's like right intention, wrong execution though, where people were almost paying double to upgrade just, for the next 2 stations.
Hmm. Okay,
So
George, definitely we want you to talk about that at our next meeting.
absolutely.
Like, I think that's, we all want to save money. There's just,
Hmm.
you could be a
And
billion, the billionaires want to save the most money. So we all
yes,
want to save money.
and another thing I'll say too is, you don't always have to. The beauty of chargers and the technology and where we are today is you don't always have to be one for one with your infrastructure. And so again, we'll save this for the next presentation, so everyone has to tune into the next one. But I'll give you a little tease of it. Of essentially, you could have double the amount of stations for the amount of infrastructure that you have, and we can have them shed the load according to need and demand. So, let's say you've got 20 ports with 10 chargers and they can all deliver 80 amps, but maybe your infrastructure is only good for five of them. That means if you've got five vehicles, you can get fully charged, no problem. But if you have 10, you could still charge all 10 just at a lower rate. And so that's another way to, if you know you've got longer dwell time, you can utilize that to your advantage so that way you're not building these, m- multi-megawatt power plants of power for your charging stations. But we'll tune in more about that next time.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Well, if nobody has any other questions, our August, we're going to take a break in July. We'll be back in August. One of our speakers will be for Sustainable Jersey. So they're going to be kind of talking about some of their new programs that they have lined up coming in the forthcoming year. And so please plan and put that on your calendar. Tuesday, August 18th at 2 o'clock. We hope that you'll enjoy your summer and I'll be back with us again. And of course, offline, if you've got other questions, you don't have to wait until we have these, these meetings. Please feel free to email us. And I will be sending out the recording and our slides in the next couple of days. Thank you again, Gabby, for joining us. Thanks again, George, my partner, and
Always.
Evie here. And we'll see you all in August. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye, everyone.
everybody. Bye.
Bye.